Today we're going to learn how Neil Young works. By the end of this, you're going to walk away with a writing habit that you can actually use. One that has produced over 1,180 songs. This isn't a productivity system. There aren't any templates, no morning pages, nothing fancy. This is very simple, but it's also very fascinating how he's worked over the years. All right, let's get into it. Neil Young is one of the most prolific songwriters, and he has described this process in interviews going back to the 1960s. And every time someone asks him how he does it, he gives roughly the same answer. An answer that sounds a little too simple. The moment he catches himself analyzing, choosing, evaluating, he puts the guitar down or puts the pen and paper down and walks away. He then waits for the idea to come back. Now you're going to see this recurring theme throughout this video. Now, Neil Young has only one rule. And that rule is, and I quote, "I don't think." He said in an interview, "Usually I sit down and I go until I'm trying to think. As soon as I start thinking, I quit. Then when I have an idea out of nowhere, I start back up again. When that idea stops, I stop." When he has an idea for a song, he stops everything to capture it, puts everything aside, and puts all his focus on that. In another interview, this one with Zane Lowe, he explains, "If it's happening, it's happening. Everything else stops. That's the most important thing." So, if you want to write songs, when the song comes to you, you got to stop everything else. No matter what you're doing, you just leave and you just go somewhere and pick up on what it was you got. He also says failure is a requirement. This is something I'll talk a little bit more about at the end. The only thing that you have to be willing to do, this is Neil talking, is failure. Be sure to welcome failure. Once you accept failure, you have no fear because what's the worst that could happen? He emphasizes on location and how it's the creative ingredient. And he said, and this is another quote, "Geography is important, not just the room, but where is the room? Where am I? I really care about that because every time you move to a new place, everything changes." He recorded the 2021 album Barn in an actual barn. Back to note-taking, one of his songs, titled Love Earth, started while he was taking a walk, and he was whistling a melody in the forest, so he had his flip phone, opened it up, and recorded the melody. And that's something to say about his resourcefulness. And back to us and how we could use all of our resources. I mean, a lot of us already have a smartphone at this point, early 2026. You could record on your smartphone. If you have any idea, any notes you want to take, I do this all the time. I'll open the Voice app or the Notes app and on my iPhone, and I'll record an idea. The Voice is more for something that I want to listen to back, something vocal, maybe even a melody. Like, if I have a song idea, I'll just throw it on there. If it's more of something that needs to be written, I'll go to my Notes app. And there's a variety of tools nowadays, better tools, in fact, that really capture good notes. There's this one app, and I'm not associated with them at all. Just want to kind of put it out there, but there's an app called Whisperflow, and it does a very, very nice job of capturing your voice notes. So there's a third option as an idea. I also want to point out that how important writing is, and for Neil specifically, it's getting into the flow of writing. Okay, if he's not feeling it, if he's too much in his head, he's not going to go there. He's not going to try to produce something creative, something meaningful to him. Also want to point out that, since writing is important, it's also important to always have something on you, like a paper and a pen, your phone, a recording device, the least amount of friction possible, something that's easy to access and put that idea out there. Now, I'm going to talk about his gear and what he uses to perform. And I'm using this I'm making a point here So if you're not exactly a technical person when it comes to musical gear, I apologize. You could skip this a little bit, it's just a couple of minutes, but I do think it's important, and the reason why is I'll talk to you about it right now. So Neil has used essentially the same gear since the 60s. He plays a 1953 Gibson Les Paul gold top, and it's painted black. He calls it Old Black. If you're technical, it's a Les Paul, and it's modified with a Brigsby vibrato tailpiece and a Firebird bridge pickup. And his amp is a 1959 Fender Tweed Deluxe. It's a 15 watt combo that he used since 1967. And it's modified with the exact tubes that he thinks make his sound perfect, his playing sound perfect. The reason I bring this up is because he's keeping things as simple as possible. Now, he's a rock musician. He plays the electric guitar. He plays on electric amps. They require electricity, etc. Yes, I understand that, but he doesn't have this whole giant setup, and he doesn't have this big rig that he plays with. He doesn't have a whole lot of pedals, and I believe he doesn't even have pedals. What he does is no, that's not true. He has one pedal. Nope, that's wrong. He doesn't have a pedal. He has a switch, and he has a custom switch that physically turns his amp knobs, so he could call up specific amp settings, so it could make that distorted sound during a performance. If he has a cleaner guitar sound, he could switch it right away and have that distorted sound. And he's not using pedals for this, which is pretty interesting to me. So he keeps it as simple as possible. He just believes that his amp and his guitar are more than enough. It's all in the playing, and I love that. All right. To streamline the recording process, here's an example. When recording with his band Crazy Horse, to avoid overthinking, the whole band would play a set of songs twice a day for a couple of weeks, and without repeating the same songs in the same set, they would go back and choose the best takes. And he said that this was designed to take the analysis part out of the game during the sessions, and that would allow the band just to play the songs and not think about the songs. They would go back and revisit the songs after the fact and pick and choose which ones were working out and refine those. Now I'm going to move on to the more product side, entrepreneurial side of Neil Young. So he created this device called the PonoPlayer. And I remember when this came out, I was super excited about it, although I did not purchase the PonoPlayer. I had an iPod. I thought it was just fine. PonoPlayer would have been amazing. I just didn't invest in that at the time. He hated hearing low quality digital music. And I could relate to this in the sense that when I was in high school, I had a friend who had a computer at the time, and I didn't have a computer, and I would go to his house, and he's the one he introduced me to Napster and peer-to-peer sharing, and he's showed me so much music, and we were like amazed by it, and we would create these mixtapes or mixed CDs of like 24 tracks or something, which at the time was a lot. It was like a double CD. But I would come back home and listen to the music, and there was just something strange about it, like something weird about the sound. It just wasn't right, and it sounded filtered, or like something was kind of layered over the music. I don't even know how to explain it. It's almost like you could use a good example today would be AI tools. If you're generating an image, it's something's just not right. It doesn't look like, sometimes in some cases it doesn't look 100% like a real image. So Kind of the same idea, kind of the same thing. So Neil created the PonoPlayer. One day in 2012, he was invited to the Late Show with David Letterman, and he showed up with a prototype of the PonoPlayer. He announced plans for the Pono ecosystem. The device was eventually developed, and in March 2014, it was fully funded on Kickstarter, which surpassed the $800,000 goal in one single day. In fact, it ended up raising $6.2 million, which makes it the third biggest Kickstarter campaign at the time. And Neil personally called on other musicians to help pitch the product on Kickstarter. So, for example, he had Bruce Springsteen, Tom Petty, Elton John, Patti Smith, Sting, Elvis Costello, Eddie Vedder, Jack White, Beck, and so many others. And they were all a part of this video to promote the PonoPlayer. And he had them hop in his car with him. Neil would play some music and he would capture their reaction. They were obviously blown away by the sound quality, and that immediately helped sell the PonoPlayer. Neil is meticulous and only wants the best sound. He would personally track down the best song masters for the Pono store. And if you don't know what a song master is, it's the master recording of a song. And he would track them down, and he would find the best version of that of the master. So if there were multiple masters, he would try to get the absolute best one to put in the Pono store. He would write directly to journalists, and he said, for example, if we are looking for a popular master and find it has not been sampled at the highest rate, we try to access it, and with the cooperation of labels and artists, maximize the recapture at the highest resolution. We reach out to creators if they are still with us to include their knowledge in the mastering. Now, the PonoPlayer was a high quality alternative to other MP3 players, as I said earlier. But in April 2017, Neil Young had to shut down the PonoPlayer, citing that the record companies were just charging too much for these high resolution formats. It wasn't sustainable for the company. And other cool things that Neil Young has done, he started to convert his 1959 Lincoln Continental into a hybrid electric vehicle, and he called it the Link Volt. Probably where Chevy got the name for the Volt. I don't know, but maybe. Neil said that the big pie in the sky goal is to eliminate fuel. 80% of the cost of a gallon of gas comes from distributing and refining it. So if people have something they could use from home, they won't have to have this distribution system. I'm going to throw in a little story here. I actually saw his Lincoln Continental. I was driving behind it. Neil was having a listening party of his album Earth, and it was at the Los Angeles County Natural History Museum. And I thought we were running kind of late, but I guess we lucked out. We were literally in traffic right behind Neil Young, and I don't think he tinted his windows. I remember seeing like through the back window, which was kind of scary, but I got to see. I saw him through the back window of his car. He's wearing his hat. He's wearing like a brown suede jacket, and he was driving his car. He had other people in his car. I think about 3 or 4 others. But it was super cool to see that and see that car in person. It was amazing. And I believe that was the second iteration, because the car did get burned in a fire at his home, I believe, before that. So he had to rebuild it. So I believe it was 2016. So I'm pretty sure I saw the rebuilt version. But that thing was a monster. It was huge, and no sound coming out of it. Of course, it was a hybrid electric. Didn't sound like a clunky not clunky, but it didn't sound like the classic cars typically sound with some muscle, right? It looked amazing though. It was a really cool car, and even the paint finish was definitely different. It wasn't your typical paint finish. Really cool. All right, so other ventures that Neil has been a part of. He created the Neil Archives, which is a subscription streaming service or streaming platform that gives his fans access to his full catalog of recorded music, of his concerts. Farm Aid, he was one of the co-founders of Farm Aid. Filmmaking, he directed several concert films and experimental films, and sometimes using his alias Bernard Shaky. Environmental activism, he's very much an activist. He has been very vocal against the Keystone Pipeline, and he participated in the Blue Dot Tour with other artists to raise awareness of oil sands damage. He's also done protest work against Monsanto, recording the album The Monsanto Years and the companion film. In fact, when I saw Neil perform live, I remember he played the song. And the song kept going on and on for a long time. And the only lyrics of the song was Monsanto. He would say it over and over and over again. And, I was enjoying it, and I believe the crowd was enjoying it too. And then I got thinking about the song after the fact. Like, the song was heart driving. It was heavy, and it just kept going. It just kept pounding. And I think I got it afterwards. This pounding heavy music was his interpretation. Now, this is my opinion. Don't know if this is what Neil intended, but the heart pounding music was his interpretation of Monsanto just pounding their poison in our food. So that's an angle. He's talked about touring sustainably, and said that he would only tour again if it could be done completely sustainably with clean energy, powering vehicles, stage lights, and sound. And he said he's working on a plan. So I hope it's true. I hope it's happening right now. I've been to several concerts, and yeah, I've noticed the rigs that are parked out behind the venue or behind the stage. Sometimes you're looking at 5, 6, or more giant semi trucks that are just parked out there. And it makes you think, man, there are so many pieces involved in a concert, right? If you're touring in a city for maybe a couple of days, that's a lot. And so if you could create a sustainable alternative, I think we're onto something. So the core habit when it comes to Neil and his music is to stop thinking and start writing. Again, in his own words, and I think I repeated part of this, and I'm going to repeat it again. Usually I sit down and I go until I'm trying to think. Okay, so he's waiting for himself to start thinking. He was waiting to get into his head so he could put the guitar down or stop the session and walk away. As soon as I start thinking, I quit. Then when I have an idea out of nowhere, I start up again. When the idea stops, I stop. I don't force it. He also writes in bursts, one song at a time. He doesn't sit down and plan for an album or a theme. He writes one song and finishes it until he's open for the next song. In an interview, he explained his process for his album Greendale. I sit down, pick up the guitar. From there, I play a few chords, strum them a few times, and if I like the chords, then I'll pull the guitar down and I'll write some words to the rhythm of the chords, and one song at a time that way. I record one song at a time because I don't want to be thinking about 3 songs at once. He doesn't want to be thinking about the album. He doesn't want to be thinking about what's going on beyond what he's recording in the moment. He wants to be in the moment. So if there's a takeaway from what he's saying here is be in the moment. Focus your attention. We're everywhere. We're distracted all the time. And what he's telling us here is focus. Plain and simple. Focus. If you're doing something, like I'm doing something here, Focus. I'm reading my notes that I printed out here. Focus. Neil treats a song like a living thing that will die if you don't act fast. He does not let songs sit. I'll tell you, I know that feeling. If sometimes I'll have an idea and I don't have something to write on, or I don't have something to record on. Might be taking a walk. I don't take anything with me if I take a run or take a walk. I want to remember that idea. It could be tough sometimes. In a 2005 interview, he said, if you write a song and you don't record it right away, then you've got to carry it around with you. Who wants to carry it around? You've got to get it out and get it down while it's fresh and brand new. As soon as I get it down, then I'm wide open and another one's going to come. Here's one of the most specific things about his writing habit. He almost doesn't edit his lyrics, and not even after the fact. And he said, for example, because you're writing, you're not editing. Editing is no good. If you're really writing, you just write it down, let it come out. He added, I might change the tense or something to past or present to match things up, but that's pretty much the extent of anything I do. And sometimes I'll write the second and third verse of the song before I write the first verse, but I don't ever go back and try to change the words to a song. He writes everywhere and on whatever is available. So he'll write on cars, in bathrooms, on pianos, guitars, or by singing a melody. When the idea comes, location and instruments, that's all irrelevant. He uses whatever he has nearby. The through line here is always have something nearby to capture. Again, I didn't capture, there's been times when I didn't capture things because I didn't have something on me, but always have something on you to capture. A piece of paper, a phone. If the idea shows up and you aren't ready for it, you might miss it. A journal, if you have a pen on you, even better, right? A pen or a pencil, something small. You've got to make it frictionless. All right, so here are the lessons from how Neil Young operates. Number 1, stop when you start forcing it. His core rule is to quit the moment he catches himself thinking too hard. He waits for the idea to return on his own terms. So for you and I, know when to stop and come back. As an example, if a meeting drags past the point of momentum, a brainstorming session becomes an exercise of performance, strategies are forced out of obligation and not clarity, they hardly produce any good work. It's kind of you're just going in circles. All right, number 2, capture things immediately. This teaches us to build a habit of capturing ideas the moment they arrive, in whatever form is available. A scribble on a receipt, a pocketbook, a pen in your pocket if you can. If you can carry those two things, amazing. Send a text or email to yourself. When we don't do that, they lose value and momentum. So make it low friction. Number 3, geography and environment. He built a barn to record music. How could we think of this situation? I mean, maybe you can't build a barn. I'm not going to build a barn right now. But what we can do is leverage whatever space, geographical area, ability to go somewhere else to get certain tasks done. If you have access to a new location, or even if you move permanently or semi-permanently to a different location, a new place, that may be helpful. That might spark your creativity. That might help you build new business relationships. Number 4, welcome failure. Neil frames the willingness to fail as the thing that removes fear entirely. That's the lesson in failure, plain and simple. You have to be willing to fail. You have to be willing to take chances. I'll speak for myself. I've taken so many chances, so many different bets on myself, and not all of them have panned out. You've got to try things. It's if not the only way, one of the only ways we'll find out what we're made of. Find what we're made of, okay, and find out how far we could get. Number 5, don't spook the horse. And this is a phrase that Neil and his band, Crazy Horse, came up with. And what it means is don't overcomplicate things. So they would make sure that everything is ready in place. No one is judging anyone. You're just there jamming. When they didn't do that, that was them spooking the horse. It simply wasn't going to work out in that moment. So we have to remind ourselves we must learn through our mistakes, fix them, get better and better every day, and keep pushing forward. Number 6, if it's easy and it works, protect it. Back to his equipment setup, he uses the same guitar, the same setup, same amp, nothing fancy, nothing crazy. I could relate this to having your pen and paper and having a phone, or having a loose sheet of paper and a pencil and using that to get your ideas flowing, using that to take note of what's happening throughout your day. And there are different variations of, for example, note taking and journaling. I'm an advocate for both. We've got to document our day to day. Number 7, get obsessively involved in the thing you're building. In his case, he was building the Link Volt. In my case, I'm starting to build this and what you're watching right now, and plan to build more around this. But you have to get obsessive about this. And talking about Neil Young, I chose to talk about him first of all because I'm a big fan of Neil's. I love his music. I love his whole like kind of aura, like who he is, and admire the guy. I intend to document how other people work, people who are alive, people who are no longer with us, and people in all walks, all sorts of industries and backgrounds that I find interesting. So Neil Young is the starting point here. He's an interesting person. He's done phenomenal things. I think what I like the most about him is that he always stuck to who he is, and he's just no BS. Just this is who I am. I just find it fascinating. The point of being obsessive, you've got to be obsessed with something. I'm obsessed. This is me speaking from the heart. I'm obsessed with making something happen. Okay, I'm obsessed with making something happen. All right, number 8, pitch the prototype. So when he came out with the Pono, he went on the Letterman show and he presented a prototype. Right, he presented his Pono. It wasn't completed yet. He just showed the thing before it was finished, and then he launched a Kickstarter before the full production of the product. Now there have been numerous companies that have sprouted from kickstarting on the Kickstarter platform certain products, and those products have come to life, and many people have built businesses around that. So it's very possible. Not only can Neil Young do this, but we could at least take something from the way he approached his marketing strategy, which was getting all of his group of friends to advocate this product, right? To stand behind it. Bruce Springsteen might not be your friend or someone but you've got friends, you've got people that would stand behind this. And even if it's not personal friends, it could be folks out there who believe the things you believe and care about the things you care about. Number 9, align the product to the belief. Neil built the Pono because MP3 compression physically hurt his ears, and he thought it was wrong. So when it comes to us, our beliefs and our products are the same thing. You get consistent product and messaging that cannot be manufactured. If you have conviction about something that you're selling or a service you're providing, people see that. Okay, and people are attracted to that. Number 10, if the market isn't ready, keep records anyway. So again, the Pono, it didn't work commercially, but because audio quality is something that people still care about. It's now the basis for Apple Music providing a special service of high fidelity music, as well as Spotify doing the same thing. If you're building something early, document it. The ideas that don't land the first time can land later. Over Neil's career, he produced a catalog of over 1,180 songs. Neil Young is an American songwriter and someone that I admire personally. His output, his creativity, and fearlessness is something I hope you come back to remind yourself that you can also do things that speak to you. If you have the conviction and want a product or a song or a service to exist, you can take these principles and make them work for you. And that's where I'll leave it. Thank you for watching and listening. This was How Neil Young Works. I'm Caesar, and I'll talk to you again soon.